Okay, today we are going to be talking about brood mares. We're going to be talking about mare's reproductive system, gestation, and birthing. And feel free when I ask questions to speak up at any time. You can just shout it out if you know the answer, okay? All right, so all about mares. A female horse over the age of 3 is called what? A mare, yes. You can fill that in your outline. A mare's heat cycle typically lasts for, do you guys know how long? Any guesses? 21 days. So usually they have 7 days of estrus. That means when they're fertile, when they can be bred. And they have 14 days of anestrus. And then we have the diagram over here of the mare's reproductive system. So we're going to talk about some of these things just briefly as we go through the presentation, okay? So over here, is my mouse on the screen? No, bummer. Okay, over there, I do need a laser pointer. Over there on the far right is the ovary. That's where the eggs come from. And then they go down the fallopian tube into the uterus. And the uterus is where the baby grows. And then when it's ready to come out, it goes out the birth canal. Okay, so those are the parts that are going to be relevant for us today. Any questions so far? Feel free to stop me at any point. Okay, who knows what ovulation means? Ovulation is when the ovaries release an egg. So this is a different view over here to the right. This is a different view of the mare's reproductive tract. It's the same thing we saw on the other side, but now it's like looking at it like from above instead of from the side. So you can see on either side, there's 2 ovaries, right? One on each side, and that's where the eggs are. And then they get released into the fallopian tubes and end up down into the uterus. You guys see that? Okay, over the 7 days, that remember what we talked about in the last slide, the estrus period is 7 days. That's when they show behavioral signs. If you're around horses a long time, you will see mares that are showing behavioral signs of coming into heat, and that usually lasts for 7 days. But some mares don't really show the signs much or change their behavior very much. It depends on the individual. But over those 7 days, the mare will grow follicles on her ovary from small 15 to 20 millimeter size to over 45 millimeters before she ovulates and goes out of heat. Typically, we follow the size of the follicles by ultrasound until the follicle is greater than 35 millimeters, at which time we will schedule shipment of the semen and the insemination. Once inseminated, we continue to follow the heat cycle until she has ovulated. So you see that picture, right, blurry kind of picture right down there? It's kind of hard to see on the projector screen, but that is what the ultrasound machine looks like. And see how they've used lines on the ultrasound machine to draw a line through it, and that's how the machine measures it and tells them how big it is. Now, this is definitely not to life size. This is huge compared to what 45 millimeters is in real life. But this is just kind of an idea of how blurry the ultrasound machines are and how much training the vets have to be able to know what they're looking at. All right. So DNA. Does anybody know what DNA is? Huh? You got the answer for the follicle size on your handout? Okay. So now we're on to DNA is the genetic code that makes up all living things. Half of the foal's DNA comes from its dam, that's its mother, and half comes from its sire, that's its father. Chromosomes carry the genetic information in the egg. So that's why when the mare releases the egg, that's what the chromosomes are in that carry that half of the genetic information that comes from the mother. Horses have, do you guys know? 32 pairs of chromosomes. Sorry, I clicked it a little early. All right. You guys got all that in your notes? What are you missing? Look, peek over at Savannah next to you. I think she has. Okay. A successful breeding can be confirmed by ultrasound as early as 14 days. That's pretty early, right? That's not very big baby, huh? And you can see that picture over there on the side. That's what the baby looks like. And it doesn't look much different than the follicle did, does it? But the vets know where they're looking for it. It's in a different place. It's not going to be on the ovary like what the follicle was. It's going to be moving down to that uterus. And we're also at 14 days. If the mare was not pregnant, what would we also be seeing on the ultrasound? So think about it. If she had 7 days of estrus and we bred her, and then she has 14 days of anestrus, what we talked about at the beginning, and then we do an ultrasound again, what would we be seeing if our breeding was unsuccessful? If the breeding did not take and she was not pregnant, what would you maybe see on the ultrasound? You would probably see the follicles developing again because she's coming back into heat, right? So that's the two things that we're looking for if we do the ultrasound that early at 14 days, we're looking for the little baby embryo, and we're also looking if she's coming into heat again or not. At 40 days old, the embryo could be recognized as a horse in teeny tiny miniature form. It has a head, legs, hooves, body, and all its organs, but is only about 5 centimeters long. So I didn't put it on the slideshow for the projector because it would have blown it up big. But you guys see on the corner of your handout papers, that is two size. That is about 5 centimeters long. That is how big the little baby horse is at 40 days in the womb. And it has a head and legs and hooves and everything, all of its organs, and it is that big. Isn't that cool? Okay, does anybody know what the word gestation means? Any guesses? Yep, the process or period of developing inside the womb between conception and birth. Did you guys get that filled in on your handout? You can see up there how to spell it. Okay, a mare's gestation period can last anywhere from 320 to 380 days. That's a huge range, huh? That's a range of 2 months. That's crazy. But those are kind of the maximums on either side. Most mares give birth between 330 and 345 days. That's the most common. And then on the side there, I just put this kind of cute little graph that shows the gestation period of some of the different mammals. So on the low end of that is rats, which have a gestation period of only 21 days. And on the upper end of that is elephants, which have a gestation period of 624 days, which is almost 2 years. So you can see horses are kind of there in the middle of that, right in between humans and whales. So that's obviously not showing all the animals, but that's kind of a cool chart just to see and compare, huh? Okay, caring for the broodmare. Pregnant mares need the same routine worming, farrier care, and attention as any other horse. The nutritional demands of a broodmare only start to rise during the last couple months of pregnancy and are greatest during lactation. Do you guys know what the word lactation means? Well, lactation is when they're nursing the foal. Okay, the American Veterinary Medical Association recommends that pregnant mares be vaccinated for blank at 5, 7, and 9 months gestation. Contracting the disease can cause late-term abortions. Does anybody know what that disease is? Any guesses? It's a pretty common vaccine. All right, let's see. Not quite. It's often just called rhino, but it's rhinopneumonitis. And so if a pregnant mare contracts that disease usually in the third trimester, then it can cause the foal inside of her to die. So that's why the Veterinary Association recommends they receive a booster vaccine so often to make sure that they have really good immunity to that. Typically, pregnant mares can continue with their normal exercise and riding until they are too big around for the cinch or they become uncomfortable with the work. So it's actually a good idea to keep your brood mares working as long as you can because it keeps them healthy and fit so that they have a better delivery because they have good muscle tone and they're fit because they've been active. Do you guys have any questions before we move on? You got all your blanks filled out? We're not there yet. Okay, so this is just some charts showing how the foal grows. So if we look over here at the yellow ones on the right side, and that second one down that says day 24, at day 24, the foal is the size of a pea. It's a 1/4 inch in diameter. And you can see on the left, it's kind of comparing it to all kinds of different funny things, right? Let's see, at 80 days old, it's the size of a chipmunk. It's 4 inches long and weighs 2 ounces. Let's move along here. At 8 months, it's the size of a lamb and weighs 45 pounds. So it does most of its growing in the third trimester. So the first and the second trimester are when it's developing all its little organs and all the stuff that it needs, and then it doesn't really start getting big until that third and final trimester. Yeah, and then day 270, it's the size of a German Shepherd. That's at 9 months gestation, weighs 70 to 80 pounds. That's kind of cool to see it compared to some different things. You guys can see how it grows, huh? Okay, in utero. The placenta develops in the uterus during pregnancy. It is filled with amniotic fluid and it facilitates the exchanges of nutrients, oxygen, and blood between the mother and foal via the umbilical cord. So, do you guys go ahead, take a seat. Grab a hand up. All right, so do you guys see you have the in utero foal there on the screen, on the picture? And you see its umbilical cord that is between its hind legs that attaches to the placenta. The placenta is the sac around it, that big bubble, and that's filled with amniotic fluid. So the fetus is kind of just floating around in there hanging out. Did you guys know that you had an umbilical cord that gave you nutrients when you were in your mommy's tummy? Do you know where it kind of leaves a mark on you? Do you know what that mark is where your umbilical cord was? Yeah, it was your belly button. Did you know that horses have belly buttons too? They do. It's kind of weird to see because they're way down underneath there, but they do have belly buttons as well. It's just maybe not quite as obvious as ours. All right, so you can see how the umbilical cord goes from the foal to the placenta, and then the umbilical cord goes from the placenta and attaches to the mare's uterus. So right there where the placenta is, the mare's blood goes in and out on her side, and the foal's blood goes in and out on its side, and it exchanges the nutrients and oxygen that the foal needs to grow and be alive. Any questions? Okay, parturition. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but we're going to go. That's close enough. Does anyone know what parturition means? Go ahead, give a guess. Baby horse comes out. Yep, parturition is the act of giving birth. And that is what it's called for all mammals. So can you guys see how to spell it there to fill it in on your outline? Okay, so what are some signs that foaling is near, that our mare is going to give birth soon? One is waxing. That's where that colostrum that's thick and sticky is being produced, and that mare's udder is getting really, really full and it starts dripping out. But because it's so thick and sticky, it causes little drippy marks that are like candle wax there, or like dried out honey, it kind of feels like. And that waxing usually tells us that she's going to foal pretty soon because she's producing that colostrum. So sometime within just the next couple of days, she should have her foal. And some mares wax just a tiny bit or not at all, and some mares wax a lot. Restlessness, so that's usually when she's about to go into labor, or she's in the first stage of labor. She might paw, she might be pacing, she might be getting up and down and doing different things. And usually in about the day or so before she gives birth, the ligaments around her tail, head, and croup are going to start to become really loose. It's going to kind of look concave right around her tail area. Another trick that I learned last year and has worked really great, and it's worked great for all of the mammals that I have used it on, the goats, the horses, everything, and it has been right every time so far, is testing the mare's milk with pH strips. So you can determine when foaling is imminent. Once the milk tests at or below 6.5 pH, then the mare will foal within 24 hours. And like I said, I've tried it on several different things, and so far it has been 100% accurate.
We had a mini, and we tried that.
Yeah.
Didn't work.
Really?
Yes, and for other did, but then we read a little later on that with minis it's not accurate.
Oh, that's interesting because it's worked on my goats. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's not so much that it's not anytime soon. It's more so that once it does drop, then you know that it will be within 24 hours. But I have had that by the time that it's fine, and then you go, okay, it's turned, and then they have it just like later that same day.
Yeah.
So
It was just funny.
yeah. Yeah. Okay, so labor is divided into 3 stages, and you guys can kind of see that picture there of that foal that's just come out of the mom and is breaking through its placenta sac there. But now we're going to cover it up with words, but I wanted you to see that before we move on. Stage 1 begins with the onset of contractions and generally lasts 1 to 2 hours. Even in a normal delivery, the mare may stand up, lie down, and roll several times in an effort to properly position the foal for delivery. During this phase, contractions move the foal through the cervix and into position in the birth canal. The fetal membranes, allantois, may become visible at the mare's vulva. When the sac breaks, signaled by a rush of fluids, stage 1 ends. So that would be what you might hear, what would be called like her water broke. You guys have heard that term before in regard to something giving birth. The rupture of the allantoic membrane and rush of placental fluids may be confused with urination. Stage 2 is the actual expulsion of the foal. This phase moves relatively quickly. If labor seems to be progressing, just wait and watch. Normal presentation of the foal resembles a diving position with front feet first, one slightly ahead of the other, hooves down, followed closely by the nose, head, neck, shoulders, and hindquarters. So you guys saw that in that diagram earlier on the slide that said patrician, right? You guys saw that diagram of it in that diving position. And then stage 3 labor begins after delivery and is the phase during which the afterbirth or the rest of the placenta is expelled. Most placentas are passed within 1 to 3 hours after the foal is delivered. You guys got all your stuff filled in? You with me so far? Any questions? Okay. Foal feathers are a soft, rubbery padding on the bottom of the foal's hooves. This helps protect the mare while the foal is passing through the birth canal. These usually dry up and disappear in the first day of life. Can you guys kind of see those pictures? That's kind of weird, that rubbery stuff on there. Okay, so signs that there may be a problem and you need to call the vet. The most deadly of foaling emergencies is a premature rupture of the chorioallantos, known as red bag delivery. If at any time during stage 2 you see red or maroon membranes covering the foal as it emerges, the placenta must be rapidly torn open. The foal is detached from its blood and oxygen supply. Normal membranes that cover the foal are white or yellow and translucent. So can you guys see that? It's kind of hard to see, but in that picture a little bit, there's the foal sac is coming out and it's red. So you guys got that on your handout, red bag delivery? If it takes more than 30 minutes for the mare to deliver, there is most likely a problem. If there's no significant progress within 10 to 15 minutes after the membrane's rupture, call your veterinarian immediately. If you notice hoof soles up, the foal may be backwards or upside down, and you should call your veterinarian immediately. If you suspect any deviation from the normal delivery position, call your equine practitioner. So here's some pictures showing some of the weird ways that the foal may present that are abnormal, that are not how they're supposed to be. So you can look at those. There's some where they have one front leg's forward, but the other one's back, because then that shoulder could get stuck. There's where they just have the head, but not the front legs, or just the front legs and not the head. The head's turned back, or they're upside down, or they're going butt first or hind feet first. So any of those things, you would want to get your vet involved, because what they may have to do is try to reposition that foal depending on the situation. All right, now on to the newborn foal. All right, 1, 2, 3 rule. The newborn foal may seem a bit dazed and confused upon first arriving to planet Earth. This is normal for a short time and is no reason for alarm. However, horses are prey animals. They have survived for thousands of years based on their ability to run away quickly. A rule of thumb for immediately following birth is that the newborn foal should stand within 1 hour, nurse within 2 hours, and the mare should pass the rest of the placenta within 3 hours. You guys caught up with your notes? Colostrum. Does anybody know what colostrum is? Go ahead, you can shout it out. Uh-huh. Anybody else have anything to add to that? Yep. Okay, the important first milk the foal receives from their dams. Colostrum is thick and sticky. It is full of antibodies that the foal's immune system needs to keep it healthy. So do you guys know what antibodies are? Antibodies are the things in your body that fight off viruses and bacteria infections and stuff like that. They keep you from getting sick. Caring for the newborn foal. It is important to give mom and baby time to rest and bond after birth. While it is tempting to try to help the foal, it is best if they are able to stand and learn to nurse on their own. Treat the umbilical stump with a diluted chlorhexidine solution to prevent infections. The foal should pass the meconium, which is their first poop, within 12 hours of foaling. If they do not, you will need to administer an enema. Foal vet checkup. If delivery went smoothly and the foal is up and nursing, then there's no reason for an emergency visit. However, a veterinarian should come do a routine checkup the next day. The vet will look over the foal from head to hoof, take his temperature, listen to his lungs and heartbeat, look in his eyes and ears, and will draw blood for an IgG test. You guys got that on your outline? The IgG test determines if the foal receives a sufficient amount of antibodies from the mare's colostrum. If the IgG test shows low levels of antibody transfer, then the vet may administer an oral colostrum supplement or do a plasma transfer. So you can see in the picture with the funny shapes there, that's what the IgG test looks like. So they compare those 3 circles. So they draw blood from the foal first, and then they mix it with a solution, and something different goes in each of those 3 circles. There's like a control one and the foals one and something else, and then they compare those colors, and that tells them what level of antibodies the foal has, if it's good enough or not good enough or somewhere in the middle there. Dummy foal syndrome. Foals that are affected with neonatal maladjustment syndrome, also known as dummy foals, appear healthy when they are born, but shortly thereafter exhibit neurological abnormalities. They are often detached, disoriented, unresponsive, confused, and have trouble nursing. This is believed to be caused by a rapid birth or low oxygen. The Madigan squeeze technique, which is what's being shown here in the picture, is an approach developed by UC Davis veterinarian and equine neonatal expert Dr. John Madigan to treat dummy foals. Madigan postulates that the journey through the birth canal activates a biochemical switch that enables the newborns to transition from a calm, sedative state in the womb to alert consciousness, an essential early life step for prey species whose survival depends on being alert and mobile shortly after birth. In cases where this physical transition does not occur, the newborn remains in the quiet state they experienced in the womb. The MST acts to stimulate the physical pressure of the birth canal and activate the switch to an alert state. Experimental studies at the UC Davis Center for Equine Health using the squeeze technique in normal foals revealed significant brainwave changes during the squeeze procedure and alterations in hormone levels. So that's kind of interesting, huh? Okay, so some fun facts about foals. We're almost to the end, guys, and these are on your handout as well. So does anybody have a good guess? A foal can consume how much amount of milk a day? What do you guys think? 1 pound and 3 ounces? That's very specific. Any other guesses? How about if I tell you that shepherd is so far off? Now, do we have any guesses? It was a good guess, but it's not even close. Let's see. 30 pounds of milk a day. That's crazy. Isn't that crazy? I didn't believe it myself, but the internet convinced me, told me it was the truth, so. Yeah, exactly. I know. All right. So who knows what is a female foal called? A filly, yes. And a male foal is called what? Very good, a colt. Foals are usually born without teeth, but their incisors start to erupt within the first week. Foals will start eating solid food around 1 to 2 weeks old. Foals are typically weaned around 4 to 7 months old. After a foal is weaned, it is called very good, a weanling. And at 1 year old, it is then called a yearling. Very good. You guys are so smart. Huh? What are you missing? The last one is yearling. That one's the second to last is weanling. All right. Any questions before we start our quiz? Okay, pop quiz time. So turn your papers over. Don't look at your notes. That would be cheating. I want to see how good you is paying attention. I think there's some candy in the tack room somewhere, maybe. All right, you guys got your papers to write your answers for the quiz? You got to write it down. Don't shout it out. Write them down, okay? Ready? Question 1. How many days does the follicle grow on the ovary before releasing an egg? So just write your answer for number 1 on the back of your paper. And just give your best guess. If you don't remember, you're not sure, just guess. Question 2. How much of the foal's genetic code comes from the dam? Question 3. How long is the horse's gestation period? Question 4. At what stage of pregnancy should the mare receive a rhino vaccine? Question 5. What is the normal presentation or birthing position of the foal? So I'll give you another minute to look at those questions and make sure you've got your answers written down that you want. You ready to move on to the next page? When you're done answering those 5 questions, raise your hand for me so that way I know if everyone's had enough time.
9.
Okay. Question 6. An emergency in which the foal is detached from its oxygen and blood supply is called? Question 7. What is the 1, 2, 3 rule? Question 8. The foal receives antibodies from the mother through this. And if you don't remember how to spell it correctly, that's okay. Just give it your best try. Question 9. An IgG test is testing for what? Question 10. The Madigan squeeze technique is used to treat what?
Number 9.
No, I said number 9, the IgG test. Yeah, and then number 10, the Madigan squeeze technique is used to treat what? Okay, when you're done answering the questions on that page, go ahead and raise your hand so I know that everybody's had enough time. All right, we ready for our answers, guys? Okay, I'm relying on you to grade your own papers, okay? Number 1, how many days does the follicle grow on the ovary before releasing an egg? What's the answer? Very good, 7 days. Number 2, how much of the foal's genetic code comes from the dam? Go ahead and shout it out. Half, 50%. How long is the horse's gestation period? Anywhere from 320 to 380 days. So typically, if you were just to say one number, you would say 340 or 345. Lila, you were thinking the estrus cycle. The gestation is when the mare's pregnant. Yes, it is within the range. So in a hypology competition, you would be correct. Okay, number 4. At what stage of pregnancy should the mare receive a rhino vaccine? At 5, 7, and 9 months gestation. No. No. All right, what is the normal presentation of the foal? Do you guys remember? Huh? A diving position. Front hooves facing downward and nose. Okay, moving. An emergency in which the foal is detached. What? Yes, red bag delivery. You remembered that one. Okay, who can tell me what is the 1, 2, 3 rule? You don't remember that one? That's the important one. Okay, the foal should stand within 1 hour, nurse within 2 hours, and the placenta is passed within 3 hours. Did anybody get that? The foal receives antibodies from the mother through what? Placenta? What? Colostrum, yep. What did you put for your answer? That's okay. An IgG test is testing for what? Well, more specific, and I gave you actually a hint on this quiz. I made it easy for you because the word is in the question above it. Antibodies, yes. If the colostrum passed enough antibodies to the foal. Okay, the Madigan squeeze technique is used to treat what? Very good, yes. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, we're going to move on